Hey there everyone, so here we are again. Nintendo promised that the release of the NES Classic, or Mini if you like, wouldn't be a repeat of the NES Classic fiasco, but unfortunately they were wrong. Pre-orders at one retailer went up and were quickly cancelled weeks before they should have been available. When they finally did become available, they first went up at 3 a.m., sold out almost instantly, were available again at 1 p.m., and again were gone in an instant. And it seems, much like with the NES Mini, Nintendo did nothing to help deter the situation. They claimed months ago that the supply would be there to meet the demand, but that just isn't the case. Stories are coming in of people pre-ordering multiple systems, scalpers are already listing theirs on Craigslist and eBay, and even one retailer is getting in on the act, forcing customers who want systems to buy bundles with various items for inflated prices. And what is Nintendo saying about all of this? As usual, nothing at all. I expect we'll get a comment days or more likely weeks from now, but the reality is it'll be nothing more than an unsympathetic apology, the standard "we didn't know people wanted them this bad" nonsense, and ultimately no real solution to the problem. That last point got me thinking though, what could Nintendo have done about all this? Is there anything at all? And more importantly, what can they do now to help correct the situation? Before that though, I want to talk a bit about why some people are upset, and whether or not you should be one of those people. It's safe to say that most people hate scalpers. It's always annoying to see them get away with making a profit by using a broken system to get ahead, leaving genuine fans of certain things out in the cold. I bet hardcore sports fans hate seeing crowds of people at the Super Bowl who clearly don't care about football. Imagine what an art connoisseur would feel watching as someone sets fire to a Picasso. These examples may seem a little extreme, but as a hardcore gamer, it really bothers me to see these systems going into hands that have zero interest in ever playing them. Now, I usually try to keep things pretty general when I talk about stuff like this, but in addition to the usual scalper BS, there's one retailer doing something I consider to be pretty despicable. It's one thing for a scalper to go buy systems at retail price and then sell them at a profit. It's another thing entirely when a large company, in this case GameStop through their gaming merchandise company ThinkGeek, are screwing over consumers from the very start. As a major retailer, they have access to large quantities of distribution-priced systems, and that alone should ensure profits for them. However, they're using those systems to sell less desired items in bundle quote-unquote deals, which is really a form of market manipulation. It's underhanded, unfair, and in my opinion something that Nintendo should be trying to stop. It may be ThinkGeek/GameStop doing it, but Nintendo is sharing the blame for allowing it to happen, and that looks bad on the company. More importantly though, these systems are being kept from the people who would benefit from them much more than me. These people include kids who've never had a chance to play these games, adults who used to play them and want to get back into them without a huge investment, and people who love video games but maybe aren't tech savvy enough to explore any other options out there for playing these games. If any of these descriptions sounds like you, then you have every right to be upset. However, if you find yourself saying things like "I already own these games anyway," or "I'll just play them through some kind of emulation," then getting one of these isn't really a problem for you. Sure, you may want one because it looks cool or maybe more convenient for you to use, but it's not absolutely critical that you own one. Personally, I'm in the "it's cool and convenient" camp, but since I own many of the games and am familiar enough with other ways to play the ones I don't, I'm not stressing about getting one. I'm more annoyed that the people I mentioned before can't get them, but also if this were something I wanted badly, I know from this experience I'd be stuck without one. So now we have two questions to ask. First, what could Nintendo have done to stop this? I feel like there were a few guidelines that they could have tried to set before distributing these systems to retailers. Limiting pre-orders seems smart, but there's always the likelihood of bots out there ordering one or two systems at a time, but doing it simultaneously through multiple accounts. Tracking IPs seems better, limiting each to only one or two pre-orders, but that's probably more technical than they feel it's worth. Truth be told, I'm an old-fashioned kind of guy, so I'd be perfectly happy with no pre-orders at all, having to line up at the store on release day, and limiting each system to one per customer. Any retailers not willing to comply would simply not get systems to sell. As for the ThinkGeek bundle nonsense, I'm not sure if Nintendo can legally stop them from doing what they're doing, but they could easily threaten to not ship them any future systems unless they agree to sell them as standalone purchases. Realistically, I doubt we'll see any of this happen, But I suppose there's always the possibility that Nintendo will see what's going on and take steps to stop it from happening in the future. Although, with regards to the NES Mini release, this is the future and, well, here we are. The next question is in a way the bigger one. What, if anything, can Nintendo do now to help correct the problem? Making more systems seems like the obvious answer, and it would help. But I think what would help more is to promise to produce systems longer. One of the reasons people shop feverishly for items like this is because they know that they're most likely limited. That idea was reinforced by Nintendo when they announced that only 6 months after its release, production of the NES Mini would end. A statement from the company that production of the SNES Mini would continue through 2018 at least would lift a lot of pressure around getting one, and make the pre-order chaos a lot more manageable. They could even go one step further and announce that in the future, they plan to release a second model with even more games, or at the very least, different games. Though admittedly, that would do less to curb the demand for the first model. A better option, and a much more viable one I think, would be to release the games and UI as a download for the Switch. I'm willing to bet many Switch owners would prefer to have these 21 games as a single downloadable package, not only making it easier to buy, but also capable of playing on the go. As a collector, I'd be even more excited to buy a physical copy of this package, the SNES Classic Pack, Volume 1. The last option would be to finally reveal their plans for whatever virtual console system they're building for the Switch. Combine that with a much larger library than previous virtual consoles and much more reasonable prices, and you would end up with an option that would not only attract the attention of many people looking for an SNES Classic, but also people thinking about making the switch to the Switch. All in all, any of these would be much more preferable than struggling to snag a pre-order, knowing that if they go up at 1 p.m. and you don't have one secured by 1:01, you're already too late. It's easy to think from their lack of a response that Nintendo doesn't care, but I'm sure they do. More sales means more profit, which alone would make them pay attention. In the long run, though, their bigger concern should be company image. Events and situations like this cast their name in a bad light, and when people start to associate that name with negativity, more and more those people start to think, since I know I can't get a Nintendo system, why bother trying? It's true that a dedicated fan base can be enough to keep a company afloat for a long time, but when you start to gain a reputation for ignoring the needs and requests of your customers, including that fan base, even the most hardcore of those fans will begin to walk away. They'll never forget who you were in the past, but they also won't care who you become in the future. Now let's be clear, Nintendo has enough money to survive any storm, so they're not going anywhere. But if they continue drawing this kind of bad press, will people one day get to the point where they don't care if they do? I love you, Nintendo, but it's not like you didn't know this was going to happen. Please figure out some way to keep this from happening again, because as a longtime fan, even I'm starting to feel a little fatigued by this nonsense. I'd like to thank you all for listening to my thoughts on the SNES Classic pre-order chaos. Let me know what you think about it all, and whether or not it's put you off from trying to get one, or from ever trying to get anything Nintendo in the future. As always, thank you guys for listening, have a great day, and happy gaming.